Actively managing your personal brand is critical if you want to make a significant impact in the areas of your life important to you. I've spent most of my life working in the world of branding products. More recently, I've been exploring the world of personal branding and wrote a book on this, Brand New, Brand You. And the podcast has come out of this as a way to share first-hand experiences from some of Australia's most recognised personal brands. Paul has over 25 years' experience in senior management roles, marketing, business development, networking, stakeholder engagement, fundraising, and event management. He is a passionate, hard-working, committed professional that wants businesses and organisations he is involved with to succeed. Paul is determined to help many charitable causes, raise money to assist those in need, and increase the awareness of these respective entities in our community. Paul is the Executive Director of Business Sydney, which is the voice for business in Sydney. Business Sydney advocates, influences and delivers policies and outcomes to drive economic growth and create opportunities to invest, work, live and visit in our city. Paul was the former director of the Business Leaders Council of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which represents over 300,000 businesses that employ over 4 million Australians. Paul is one of Australia's leading fundraisers and business networkers and is committed to helping many important causes in our community. Paul was also the former New South Wales President of the Marketing Institute of Australia for 4 years, a member of the Council for 10 years, and is currently an Associate Fellow and Certified Practicing Marketer of the Marketing Institute of Australia. In his early years, Paul held senior roles at the University of New South Wales and was the former Chief Executive of University of New South Wales Foundation. Paul, welcome. Paul, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to really have a chat, because we see you, we hear you on media channels, and you do such a fabulous job in the city. It's a great opportunity to talk about how one acts and behaves in terms of guarding a brand, and you do it so well for Sydney. But today I'd like to talk about how you protect, guard and develop your own personal brand. Do you think that you are actually a brand as an individual?
Well, firstly, can I say, Garry, thank you very much. And I'm honoured to be on this podcast, and thank you for the opportunity. But also, rather than me, I want to thank you for your contributions. I mean, your personal contributions, both as a business leader, an owner of a business, a leader in the community. You just mentioned your role as, head of Rotary in Sydney, and everything you've done over your lifetime, because it's people like you that drive the city, that make the city what it is today. And, it's a compliment to you.
Thank you.
And it's a compliment to all of us, because we've all got to play a role in our community. And that is important, because we have to show leadership, and we've got to show the passion, the enthusiasm, the drive, the commitment to really put Sydney on the map. And you talk about brand. Well, Sydney is a brand in its own right. From my perspective, brand is really important, because people have to trust you, have to feel that they have someone at the helm of Business Sydney to drive the enthusiasm, the drive and the passion to ensure that Sydney remains the number one global international city in the Southeast Asia, but also in the top 10 cities around the world. And from my perspective, I've got to work hard for it. I mean, you can't just expect it. I'm not a beautiful man. I'm not a wealthy man. I'm not an intelligent man. And all those things are important. And so I've got to protect my brand, and my brand is about, being a caring, thoughtful, hardworking individual. And if I don't protect those things that I believe in, then that damages the brand. And so therefore I've got to work at it 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because, people look up to you. People want you to achieve. They want you to bring about outcomes that are positive, and I've got to work hard at it. It just doesn't come. It's not brought on a platter. My parents always said, nothing's going to give it to you on a platter unless you work hard at it and you protect what you have and you work hard at it 24/7.
Yeah, and look, I concur with everything you say. where you are today representing or you as a brand, but also driving the Sydney brand. Prior to being involved with Business Sydney, you had another career. So when you were in that career or that role previously, how did you position yourself? Because obviously we know you for who you are today and what you represent, but how did that happen previously? Tell us something about your previous role and how that positioned you.
Yeah, well, firstly, I was, I did all the fundraising for the Liberal Party, and that was for 12 years.
Right.
I took over from Michael Yabsley.
Yep.
And that was a difficult task, although easy, because at that time, John Howard was the Prime Minister, one of our greatest Prime Ministers.
Yep.
And we also had one of our greatest treasurers, Peter Costello, and working with both of them was just an honour. They were driven, they were committed, they were passionate, but they were doing it for Australia and for Australia's future. And, their legacy has, put Australia in a very strong position. So working with those two people was fantastic. Then I took on the role of being CEO of the Australian Hotels Association, where I got my grey hairs, defending alcohol, smoking and gambling, right? Very difficult period of time. Very, very difficult period of time. And it was a period of time where we had the lockout laws brought in by the Premier, the then Premier, Barry O'Farrell. Yep. And that was all around alcohol, fuel, violence. And a very difficult period of time for the community. The decision that the Premier made at that time to bring in the lockout laws, well, I didn't agree with it, nor did the community, but it had to be done because it needed a circuit breaker to drill into people's mind that alcohol, fuel, violence is not something we need in our city, right? Sure. So that was very important. And look, over time, it affected our nighttime economy, and it's had a big impact. Then after the AHA role, I then became the executive director at the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So that was a national role. So I was working with business leaders, politicians at the national level, and I was doing events right across the country, and I was doing a lot of advocacy. And at that period of time, Kate Carnell was my boss, and then James Pearson was my boss, and then I did 1 year with Andrew McKellar, who's now the current CEO of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And it was an important role because our role was to lobby both the government of the day and also the opposition party and the crossbenchers. And we had to articulate the business, especially small business, small to medium size, are the engine room of Australia. And if you don't support those small and medium-sized businesses, the economy will not grow. And, thankfully we had John Howard, and thankfully we have had, Peter Costello, who really put the economy in a strong position. And then subsequently you had Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull and Kevin Rudd and Julie Gillard and so on. But the engine room of Australia is really important, and you've got to work with small and medium-sized businesses to keep the economy going in that respect. So being involved in those organisations over that period of time gave me a lot of skills, attributes, experiences, and it's really important that you need to capitalise on those three things that you gained over those different jobs. And now I'm seeing the fruits of that, and leading the role as the Executive Director of Business Sydney, and having those skills and attributes from experience that I gained over those three different jobs has really given me the ability to really now lift Business Sydney and work collectively with businesses, government, bureaucracy and community to achieve outcomes, which is so important.
So when you talk of your previous roles, how much of your identity was tied up in those roles? Because today you've actually got a really significant brand, and your identity is probably more about your credibility than actually your identity.
Well, all those three jobs that I did, I had a brand as well there. I mean, being the pub's boss, so I was called, Joe Aston would refer to me in Rear Window as the pub's boss. And, at the end of the day, I was there representing the hoteliers. And, a lot of them were small, medium-sized hoteliers. They were employing, at that time, they were employing something in the vicinity of 75,000 people across New South Wales, contributing, something like $25 million to community and fundraising initiatives. And it was an important role. And I had to be the spokesperson for that industry. Difficult, when you're defending three, things in our community that are all legal, smoking, drinking and gambling, but it's always a difficult one because, people accuse the industry of, going out there and, preying on people's, what would you call it? Weaknesses? Yeah, weaknesses, right?
Yeah, because it's socially unacceptable in some quarters.
Well, that's exactly right. But again, they are there and you can't ignore them, right? No. And then taking on the role at the Australian Chamber of Commerce was really good because I was able to hear from businesses from across the country, not just from Sydney or from New South Wales. So it really gave me the ability to raise the awareness. And I was at the helm when we had COVID.
Yep.
So we did 232 Zoom calls.
Sessions,
sessions. And I had the Prime Minister, who at the time was Scott Morrison, Josh Frydenberg, who was the Treasurer. Yep. We had Anthony Albanese, who was the opposition leader at the time.
Sure.
We had Hunt, Jeff, what was his name? Greg Hunt, who was the Health Minister. And at that time, businesses needed us to be online and provide them with the information they needed to get on with, running the country.
Sure.
Right. And at that time, to move from face-to-face engagement to online was an amazing thing. And we were lucky that we had Zoom and Teams to drive the economy while we were all locked up during COVID. And it was really important. So I had to create a brand and provide that online experience and engagement because people were needing to hear from the Prime Minister, from the Leader of the Opposition, from the Treasurer, from the Health Minister. And so we did and people wanted that engagement. And it was amazing how people were able to, get the information and listen to what was going on and help drive the economy while we were all in that sort of position.
And that's about engagement. That's about making sure people understand where they stand and you're accessible. That's
and it's really important because at the time during those 2 years we were going through COVID, people were scared. People didn't know what to do, and we were going into territory that we'd never been. And hopefully, as a result of what's happened, if we have another crisis like that, we're in a better position to manage it than we did back then.
It's a very interesting case study, which I'm not sure has been done so well. In terms of leadership during COVID, because one of the components of strong leadership is actually to show courage. And that showing courage means you do things that you probably don't know what the outcome's going to be. COVID was a good example. And so strong leadership was demonstrated, but probably not appreciated.
Well, good on Prime Minister Scott Morrison at the time. He set up the National Cabinet, and that was a very important thing. But we also found out that our current system of government of, a federal national government, and then you've got states, right, and you've got territories, and then you've got councils. It's a tough one to manage.
Absolutely.
And, I don't see that will ever change. I can't see that the Premier of New South Wales is going to ring up the Prime Minister and say, well, listen, we're going to dissolve the state parliament and we're just going to hand everything over to you. That won't happen.
No.
And we saw when both Premier Baird and Premier Gladys Berejiklian tried to amalgamate councils. Well, that didn't work, and we saw that have a big impact on Premier Kennett when he was trying to do the same in Victoria. We're never ever going to change the structure that we have. However, we've got the golden ticket living in this country, right? You can go home, you can flush the toilet and your ones and twos disappear. You can turn on the tap and you've got fresh water which you can drink. There are not many places around the world where we do have that ability, right? And so we're lucky to be where we are. Yes, we may not have everything that's perfect, but at least I know that I can find a job if I was unemployed tomorrow. I know that I've got a roof over my head, and I know that there are support mechanisms that will support me if I fall through the cracks. And then finally, I know that I can go to a hospital or I can send a child to school knowing that the system we have does work. May not be perfect or 100% perfect, but at least it does work.
You're great insights and great wisdom in so many ways. But getting back to you and how people perceive you, you've had some difficult roles that are not necessarily socially acceptable. You've had, obviously, a percentage of the population would support a political party and others would not. So you've got this combination of trying to build a brand, but also recognise that you need to be cognizant of and reading the room. So how much or how important is it that you notice you take of people, of what they think of you?
Well, it's important. Nowadays we've got LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So we're able to use LinkedIn as a tool of building the brand, maintaining the brand, right? Whereas growing up, when you and I were growing up, we had to rely on maybe getting a couple of lines in the telly or the Sydney Morning Herald at the time.
And we were excited.
And it's exactly right. Or even getting interviewed on radio, right?
Yeah.
But you now have the ability to promote yourself via whether it's Instagram or whether it's TikTok or whether it's LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the preferred. I mean, it's the one that I utilize the most, because it is the business tool of social media.
Sure.
I do a little bit on Instagram. I don't use Facebook, and I don't use the other platforms. I haven't got time. I mean, you've got to find time to do it.
Sure.
Because you've got to allocate time to make sure that you're protecting your brand, which is really important. And so with LinkedIn, I don't talk about Paul Nicolaou. I talk about other people.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really important, because people will appreciate the fact that it's not about you. It's not always about me. Yes, protect the brand is important. But you know what? I want to highlight what Garry does. I want to highlight what John does. I want to highlight what Julie does, et cetera, et cetera, because they are the people we need to be putting on pedestals. I mean, you look at Justin Hemmies, right?
Yep.
Now, here is someone who's taken the risk. He's a risk taker. He's an innovator. He's an entrepreneur, and he's built a business. A lot of it has to do with his family and his father and his mum, but they have created an empire that employs thousands of people, that provides people with nighttime and daytime activities and places to visit. So it's about not me, but it's about identifying people and saying how we should be promoting them and how we should be thanking them for taking the entrepreneurial aspect and the risk taking that many people do. And from my perspective, I just go out there and do it. I go out there and work and help other people. Like, for example, tomorrow night I'm going to be doing the CEO Sleepout, which you've done on many occasions, right? Yep. I'm not doing it because I want to be the Premier of New South Wales or the Lord Mayor of Sydney. I'm doing it because I'm passionate about homelessness.
Yeah.
The council does an annual count, Garry, and it's 360 odd people sleep rough in our city, CBD, right? So I'm out there asking and raising money, and I'm doing the CEO Sleepout, not because I want to get an OAM or an AM after I'm doing it because I'm passionate about and I feel sorry for those people. And I think to myself, it's no good me sitting on the sideline and feeling sorry. I actually want to go out there and do something that contributes to help those people.
Which is what you do on a regular basis.
Exactly right. 7 days, 3, and my mum, my wife and my kids say that I'm a bit mad about it, and I'm constantly doing things for other people, but I believe in it. It's not because I'm doing it because I want any award or anything like that.
You enjoy it.
Yeah, I love it. But again, you and I are leaving a legacy. And if we can use the activities that we do to force the federal government or the state government or local government to do something, that's what I want to leave as a legacy.
But it's also, you are leading the way and setting an example for others to follow and others to view. And that in itself is building momentum for government to change their mindset on a whole host of things.
Yep, totally.
And I think that's critically important. But it actually gets back to some of the issues or questions about reputation. And reputation is certainly something that's critically important. But when did that become important to you?
At university.
Why?
Only because I became the president of the Students' University of New South Wales, and I was on the academic board, I was on the faculty board, I was in the University Union, and I was also president of the Greek Society, the Hellenic Society back then. And I learnt that back then it's important, your reputation is important. Yep. You have to be seen to be someone who's trustworthy, honest, and have the utmost integrity. You need to be hardworking, you need to be dedicated, and you need to be committed, right?
Yep.
And if you're not going to do any of those things, then you can't take on senior roles in our community, because you have to have all those things, right? So you got to work hard at it, right? And it started back then. I lie. It should have happened at school. I went to Wavy College. I was a corporal. I was a sergeant. I was a senior. Then I was a commander of a platoon in cadets, Army cadets, and I learnt my skills. During my time at cadets at Wavy College.
Okay.
Yeah. Of leading. Of taking kids out onto bivouacs and camps and so on, and taking them and showing them leadership. So a lot of that came from that, but it also came, if I go back, my mum and dad. My mum and dad, my father used to say it's like when you grow a little tree, when a little sapling, right? You have two stakes on either side, and you put the string around it to hold the tree growing up. Well, your parents, your mum and dad, are literally those stakes that ensures that I grow straight. If you don't have that stake on one side, sometimes that tree will grow, or the sapling will grow in a different direction. So they always instilled in me that you need to have people by your side to help you grow, and they were there all the way until I got to university. And then from university, I then developed my skills both from my time in cadets and then time at university in that leadership roles.
And you didn't go into the military after cadet?
No, it's funny you say that.
Did that interest you?
Well, it did, but I thought to myself that I wanted to go into politics, Garry. I wanted to go into politics. Not because I wanted to be the Prime Minister or the Premier. I did it because I wanted to again do something for the community, right? And I did try twice. I ran for Ryde in 2003 and then subsequently in 2005 for Pittwater. Didn't get elected. But then I woke up one morning and I thought to myself, you know what? I can do other things that I could leave a legacy for, and I can go into business and I can do my bit in representing business, and that's what I've done, basically.
You've done it incredibly well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting. As you're talking, I'm reflecting on the fact that I've always seen myself as in some organisations where I am on the outside rather than the inside. And I think that non-for-profits and community organisations can actually have far more impact and push government to do things rather than getting into government or getting into politics to try and do it. And I 100%. Think you've probably demonstrated that in some of your previous roles of what you've been able to achieve because you actually have more credibility standing up as a CEO of a community organisation or an association that is driving a particular sector or wants to protect a particular sector. And I think there should be far more of those organisations around because community will benefit greatly from it.
100%, Garry. And you and I, as with many others, right, whether it's David Gonski or whether it's Marcus Blackmore, whether it's John Simon or where Harry Triguboff, I mean, there's a list of business leaders who have contributed so much, not just from an economic perspective and from a business perspective, but also the amount of work that, David Gonski, as former Chancellor of University of New South Wales, has done and what he's contributed to that university. Harry Triguboff, there's a man who, if we didn't have Harry, we wouldn't have apartments for people to live in, right? So, and his donations that he makes to so many different charities that no one knows. I mean, even Kerry Packer. I mean, if you look at what Kerry Packer did, and what James Packer has done and continues to do. And there's millions of people who, Christine Holgate. I mean, there's myriads of business leaders who play an important role, who will leave, who are or have left a legacy, who will leave a legacy going forward, which is really important. And we need to have those people who are risk takers, who are leaders, who are going to drive not only the economy, but also drive the well-being of a city or a country. And, they've all contributed in some shape or form.
Oh, very much so. And it gets to the next point I want to raise. You talk about really strong, successful leadership. And with that comes an understanding of values and how important values are to us as individuals, but also community and a business community as well. When were values something that became important to you? You've demonstrated some of the things that your parents have instilled in you, but where did you start becoming aware how important values were in your own
Literally
life?
At university, because once you take on a role, whether it's president of the Greek Society or whether it's president of the Students' Union, you need to have values so you can aspire to them, but also encourage others to follow. Right? Because if you don't have those certain values, then you don't know. It's not good just taking on the role and just doing it just because it's a job or because you want to be the next Prime Minister of Australia. You've got to do it because you passionately believe in them and you also aspire to achieve those things. And that's so important. And so university played an integral role. I remember when I finished up as president of the Students' Union, at the time was Professor Michael Burt was the Vice Chancellor. And I went in and saw him. I said, it's been great working underneath you. And he said, no, Paul, you've been working with me, right?
Yeah.
And that's because he trusted me, because whenever there were issues, I always worked with the Vice-Chancellor. I didn't sort of go and, go occupy the Chancellery in protest.
Mm-hmm.
I always said to the Vice-Chancellor, if you need me, I'm here to help you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We may not always agree on where you're heading or taking the university, but I want to work with you, because the only way you're going to bring about change is working collaboratively and collectively for the goals that you set, right? And it's important, right? It's no good protesting and whinging on the side. It's about saying, all right, we've identified the problem, what are the solutions, and let's work collectively to find those solutions and implement those solutions.
So when we talk about values, what are things or values where you've had a situation where you've walked away, where either an organisation or a relationship that was such that you felt you were not aligned and that you were disconnected and you had to walk away?
Look, the Australian Hotels, was a period of time. I only did that for 3 years. Normally I sort of stay in a role for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, right? The AHA was a very difficult one, because it was, I remember, Michael Crouch, who was the former CEO of, lovely guy.
Yeah.
He was, the owner of Zip.
Yep.
And he called me up and said, Paul, why did you take on the role of CEO of the AHA? I mean, that's not you, right? And I thought about it, and I was thinking to myself, well, Michael, you are right. But I did it because I wanted to gain the experience of being a CEO, right? Because previously, CEO of the foundation was great, but I didn't have to worry about staff. I didn't have to worry about, the image or the brand, because the university brand was in its own right. It could stand its own 2 feet. But taking on the role of the AHA was a very difficult one. As I said to you before, defending alcohol, smoking and gambling. 3, things that are legal but are problematic in our community. But I wanted to sort of see if I can, change it somewhat, so the perception that the AHA isn't just all about money and smoking and drinking and gambling. But it was very difficult, because at the time we had those 2 unfortunate incidences of alcohol-fueled violence, where 2 young men were bashed to death. Having to deal with the parents of those respective kids was really difficult. Dealing with, the accusation that all, hoteliers are bad people, which they're not, right? But there are unfortunate incidences, and Australians has always had a problem with drinking, right? Whether you like it or not. I mean, even when, the first fleet came, we had the rum rebellion, and we had, and drinking's always been an issue and a problem in Australia, as is in America, as is in the UK. So it was about me taking on the role, learning and gaining experience as CEO, but also trying to deal with government, deal with the community on those 3 issues that affected people in the community. And it's about saying, all right, yes, there are issues, but then we can put guardrails along the side to protect people in those situations, whether it's a problem gambler or a problem drinker. And so it's about working with government. It's working with the public service, the entities that, put in the rules and regulations of how, alcohol should be served or how gaming should be managed. And it's about working with everyone, i.e. those 3 different politicians, the public service and the community and the industry, in making sure that we had some role. But it was very difficult, Garry. It wasn't an easy period of time.
But were they values for you? Did you question or have any doubts?
I had doubts. I didn't question, but I did have doubts.
And did it come to a point where it just was a disconnect?
Yes. Yeah, it came, and it was a hard decision to make. But I made the call because I thought to myself, well, I've done as much as I could. I don't think I can do any more. And that's when I sort of made the decision it was time to move on.
Yep. When I'm talking to young and not so young people who are really trying to build their brand, the one question I ask them is, have you sat down to work out what your values are and what you would walk away from? And it is fascinating to hear the responses of young people, because a lot of them just don't know. They've got no idea. And I think that if we have an understanding of what we can and what we can't, as when we develop our careers, etc., we're in a far stronger position to know what we will accept and what we won't. And I think it's always challenging you might join an organisation and find everything's fine, but all of a sudden you hear, and you so often hear, oh, well, the values of the organisation didn't align with mine anymore. That can mean anything, but it actually is important to know and monitor. Was it a poison chalice, you think, in reflection that you walked into?
I don't think it was a poison chalice. I mean, no. I enjoyed the 3 years I was there. As I said, I mean, I worked closely with hoteliers and lovely people. I mean, you just have to look at, Arthur Laundy, and you have to look at, Justin Hemmes, you look at Patrick Gallagher, you look at Chris Chung. I mean, there's a myriad of hoteliers that have done so much. They employ people. They take a risk. I mean, running a pub is not an easy thing to do, right? And having to ensure that there are guardrails around problem gamblers, problem drinkers, and smoking is really important. And those people in the industry do try to work very hard to limit the impact that those three issues have in the community. And it's credit to them, right? Because it is. I mean, you can't ban it. You can't ban gambling. No. You can put guardrails around it, and you can put guardrails around how much you can drink, and you put guardrails around how much you can smoke, right? Sure. But it's not just the industry itself. It's got to be government. I mean, I'm frustrated at the federal government at the moment because they've whacked up the excise on cigarettes, and look what's happened. We've got a criminal problem.
Correct.
Right. And the government still has not dealt with it as they should. And there are people who are saying that we need to reduce the excise because it's all the money's all going to the criminals, and which is a really frustrating thing. And then we're seeing all these gang-related incidents happen not only just in Sydney but also in Melbourne.
But don't you think history is repeating itself?
Agreed. Yep.
I mean, the whole excise on tobacco products, we had this problem with Chop Chop probably 10 or 15 years ago.
Yep.
And was dealt with to some extent.
Well, alcohol in America, when they brought in I mean, it's no good banning these three things that happen in our community. It's about managing them and managing collectively with industry. And one of my biggest gripes with Premier O'Farrell at the time is I was going to the government at the time because he was the Premier and saying, listen, let's work together to solve alcohol. It's no good just putting in the lockout laws and assuming that the lockout laws is going to be the panacea to the problem.
No.
My view is, in anything that I do, if there's a problem, I'm going to work with all the stakeholders, or all those people that have something to do with that particular problem, and I'm going to sit down and say, all right, well, how are we going to solve it? And find the solutions and then implement it together, because you've got to have a buy-in. You've got to have skin in the game. And if you don't have skin in the game, Paul Nicolaou can't solve all the problems.
No. Totally agree. You come in contact with so many people, I'm sure, on a daily basis. We sometimes pass in the street, or we're in a cafe or whatever, and I guess there must be people who look to you to get guidance, advice, and if it might be a mentoring type of environment. Are there, in terms of your career, where you've got so many challenging roles, but also you've got such a diverse experience, are there people who you can identify who have mentored you on the way?
Well, look, not officially as mentors, right? But Kate Carnell played a big role in my life as well. A person who's passed away, a fellow Grant Kearney, who was the former Director of Public Affairs and Development at the University of New South Wales when I took over from him. I've spoken many times to Marcus Blackmore, John Simon. I did some consultancy work for Harry Triggerboff a number of years. I've worked closely with so many different people, and I've been able to learn a lot from them as well. I look at Alpha Mafarish example. I mean, there's someone who works hard who owns Servcorp, Alpha Mafarish, right? I mean, all these people that I'm mentioning, and it's not that I'm dropping names to prove that I know these people, but all of them. I look at Justin Hemmes, anything he touches, he turns to gold, right? And then when you look at, Chris Lucas, who's, runs, he's the equivalent to Justin Hemmes down in Melbourne. He's just opened up Grilled Americano. He's got Chin Chin. I mean, all these people have got skills and attributes and, things that you look up to. And I look up to these people because they have achieved what they have achieved.
Yeah.
And it's not through just luck. Sometimes it could be luck, but a lot of it's hard work.
Absolutely.
And things like that are real. Michael Crouch, fantastic fella. I mean, who contributed a lot to, building a business, an Australian business, not a business from around the world.
No.
What you've done, with your business, right? You're all icons. You're all business leader icons, and icons that we need to put on the pedestal to say, hey, wow, if you didn't take the punt, if you didn't go out there and turn the business into what you've turned it into today, we wouldn't have the business, and people wouldn't have jobs, and we wouldn't be contributing to the economy.
Yeah. So can you identify anyone that sort of not?
Look, identify someone. Look,
While you're
Stephen,
thinking,
there's Stephen Cartwright, former CEO of Business New South Wales.
Yep.
I got a lot of time for, as I mentioned to you before, Kate Carnell. These people took the punt on me. John Yu, Dr. John Yu, right?
Yeah.
John Nyland, right?
Yeah.
They all took a risk to employ me.
No one outside what I'm trying to get at is outside your work environment, there wouldn't be, or there would be people who you can call up and say, what do you think about that? Or those sort of
Warwick Smith is one I've got a lot of time for, and I seek his advice. Tony Shepherd.
Yeah.
Are two people that I look up. Graham Bradley.
Yes.
Again, you know all this. And it sounds like I'm dropping names as I said before, but I'm not.
The sort of
but they're people that I can have a conversation with and sit down. Sally Lone, again, they're people that I know that I can ring and they would give me their time to have a conversation with. And I've had many occasions where I've had that happen.
So you can see the value in it.
Oh, totally.
Is it? Do you mentor any younger people?
I do. I get a lot of people who come to me and seeking my advice, and
sure.
a lot of people come to me and talk about politics, right?
Yeah.
And I keep saying to them, you know what? If you're not going to get married or have a family or a partner, then yes, you can put your 100% into being a politician.
Exactly.
Right? But if you're going to have a family, you're going to have a partner, if you've got no money, then I suggest you wait till you're in your late 40s, early 50s before going to politics. Because firstly, you have to settle down with your partner. If you're going to have children, you want to grow up with those children, right? Not pursue a political career while you have family, because it's very hard. If you especially want to go into politics down in Canberra, forget it if you're going to have a family, because I've seen politicians and they've broken up with their partners, their kids have gone wayward, and it's not the life for someone who wants to be. Those days when you had John Howard and Jeanette Howard and they were able to bring up their children is because Jeanette Howard was at home while John Howard was out being the politician, right?
Sure.
Those days are gone. Those days are not the same.
The demands are so different.
Totally.
And that's not just in politics, that's in business generally.
Of course it is. Of course. So I keep advising young budding politicians, go and work, get a job, find out what it's like in the real world, because when you want to go into politics, you can say you run a business, you've run a hotel, you've run a coffee shop, you've been an industry association CEO, you've done all that before you go into politics. You need to have real life experiences, because going into politics and just going in there, and if, for example, if you're there today in politics and then you're out the next day, what have you got to go back to?
Exactly.
Right?
And your identity is tied up in the role you have.
Exactly right. 100%.
So this podcast is titled The Astute Leadership, and it is very much about personal branding, but personal branding is part of astute leadership. What is your perspective on what are the skills that are required for astute leadership? Because it's critically important in today, and you've mentioned some great leaders.
You got to be passionate.
Yep.
That's really important. You got to be committed.
Yep.
You got to love what you do.
Yes.
Right, which is really important.
Yep.
And you're also willing to give up time to help others and to help the community. Yep. It's not good just going in there and just personally gaining everything and just walking away. And it's about saying, all right, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to love what I'm going to do. I'm going to help show leadership, but I'm also going to do my bit for the community. And everything that I've done, whether, one thing you didn't mention, but I'm on the board with John Robinson for Food Bank Australia, which has just recently just got on the board. But I've been raising money for charity. I've already raised nearly $700,000 for Vinny's CEO Sleepout over the last 5 years. Yep. I do it because I want to do it and because I'm passionate about it. I raised money for Modern Greek at the University of New South Wales as a volunteer. Yep. I'm the chairman of Astea, which is not Astea as being healthcare, but Astea Foundation, which looks after kids and adults with disabilities. I do it because I want to help. I want to contribute, which is so important. I get involved with Pip Kiernan, and before Pip, her father, Ian Kiernan, with Clean Up Australia. And because I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave an Australia that's still clean and beautiful, like we all do. You get involved with Clean Up Australia for the sole reason is to pick up rubbish and make sure that the future generations will benefit from it. So it's being a leader, but it's also being a leader in the community. But it's not about leading because Paul Nicolaou wants to become the Premier or the Prime Minister. It's about Paul Nicolaou leaving a legacy, but it's also about Paul Nicolaou showing others in the future that you can be a leader, you can be a politician, you can be a community person.
The one element you've just demonstrated is you've got to walk the talk and talk the walk. And you demonstrate that very clearly. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Have to.
So what is your leadership style? Is that something that you're conscious of?
I have to be. You have to be. You can't be a leader without being conscious of the fact that you are the boss, right? And as a boss,
what's your style?
Well, my style is open door. Work with people, collaborate with people. But you've also got to be. You have to lead, right? And you can't just sit there waiting for it to be brought to. No, I have learned, and I had a brother at Wavy College at the time called Brother Whittick, and he kept saying to us when we were doing religion classes, he's saying, you can't just pray to God and hope that he's going to give you a Lamborghini at Christmas time, right? And he always said, you've got to work hard at it. And I've always remembered that quote. And I remember the day. It was a sunny day. He was up there on the stage, and he was saying, if you want the Lamborghini, or I can't remember if it was a Lamborghini or whatever car it was, God's not going to provide it for you, right? You've got to go out there and work hard at it. And everything that I've achieved, right? Look, I wasn't brought up in a wealthy home. I mean, my mother was a dressmaker. My father worked on the production line at General Motors Holden at Pagewood, right? And they gave up a lot of their hard-earned money to educate my brother and I, put us through a Catholic school and then get us into university, right? But I've had to work for everything, right? And my view in life is that it's never ever going to be brought to you on a platter. You've got to work hard at it, and you've got to work at it 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And at the same time, if you want to be a leader, you've got to show leadership, but you've got to have the drive and the passion and bring people with you. Because it's no good being the leader and people not following you, right?
Totally agree.
And it won't be, the business or the organisation that you're leading won't be successful unless you bring people with me. And I've got, staff who've been with me for the last 10, 15, 20 years. Now, that is a credit to them because they've put up with me, right? And I'll give them a credit and I'll give them the gold badge for what they've done. But also it's up to me to show that, working with me is not that bad, and working with me is about achieving results and about being there to lead and to show how working together collaboratively, working with the community, working with politicians, working with business leaders, we can achieve an end result that's all good for everyone.
People don't leave leaders, they leave organisations.
Bingo. Exactly right. And you want people to follow you. You want people to have trust in you, have faith in you, and you want people to walk away going, you know what, I really enjoy working with Paul, because it's not about Paul, it's about the future. It's about working with others. It's about the community. It's about leaving a legacy for our wonderful city, our wonderful state, and our wonderful country.
So how long have you been in the role now?
5 years.
Business.
5 years. And love every minute of it. I get out of bed, Garry, thinking, well, because I take the view, every day is a challenge, but every day is an opportunity, right? And if you wake up with that attitude, you're going to go really well.
We've talked about an enormous amount, and I could be sitting here for another hour or two talking to you about the diversity of experience you've had, the learnings you've been able to share, and the roles and people you meet from a day-to-day basis. What would you like to share in terms of the learnings in a nutshell for someone who's really wanting to develop themselves as a brand builder, a marketer, and a leader within this city?
Well, it's about, it's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about that
Right.
person. It's about other people.
Sure.
It's about showing, that you appreciate, you acknowledge, you understand, you in awe of people. I mean, I'm in awe with you, right? Because of what you've done. And I'm not just saying, because I don't, you're not going to give me millions of dollars, or you're not going to give me, I'm not going to, you don't need anything from me, and I don't need anything from you.
Sure.
But what I do honour and respect is what you've done, right? Because you've achieved something. And what we all should be encouraging all Australians is to go out there and achieve something, whether it's being good at A, B, C, D, or whether it's running a successful business, or it's running to be a politician. We want everyone to be successful, because if we're all working for that success goal in life, then we're going to achieve a lot, and we're going to contribute a lot. I mean, I get frustrated. I mean, I look at the 360 people that are sleeping rough on the streets of Sydney every night, and I sit back and think to myself, all right, well, no good me whinging, whining. I'm going to do something about it. That's why I get involved with Vinnie's and the CEO Sleepout. Why you got involved with Vinnie's and the Sleepout. It's not because you have nothing else to do, but you're doing it because you want an outcome.
Absolutely.
And if we can encourage people to sort of set a vision or an objective in life, whether it's to run their own business or whether it's to be a politician or a great sports star. I mean, you look at our sporting stars, they achieve so much, and it's because they've got a goal. They want to be, tonight, as we know, we want the Blues to win, and they're down in Melbourne playing against and all those players. They're doing it not because they want to wear the Blues jumper. They want to walk away going, you know what? I was a team member of that successful state of origin that's New South Wales has secured this year. We want everyone to set a goal. We want everyone to sort of have something in mind that they want to strive for and work for. And if we can encourage more people to do that, this country we'll be pumping at 100 miles an hour.
I totally agree. I mean, in adding to what you've just said is giving people a reason and a purpose to not only contribute, but actually enjoy life. And I think so many young people miss the point that to actually make a life for themselves, a career, you've got to have a purpose, and it's contribution.
Yep. Gary, as I said to you before, we've got the golden ticket.
Yeah.
Where would you want to be? In the back blocks of Iraq or Lebanon or Ukraine? We've got the opportunity, and, we're lucky to be in this country because, as I said to you before, if I lost my job today, I can find another job tomorrow. It may not be what I want to do. It may not be the income I want.
No.
But the fact is, I woke up this morning like you did and saw the sun shining and heard the birds singing, right? Yeah. That, in its own right, is an objective that we should be achieving.
Absolutely.
Right? That's number one. And then number two, we get out there and think, all right, there's going to be challenges, but there's also going to be opportunities, right? So if we can grapple and grab those challenges and learn from them, and then with the opportunities, grab them and think, all right, well, what can I do here, right? I love introducing people to people, right? Yeah. Because if I open the door to you and it's someone that you can go do business with, or you develop a friendship and a relationship, I walk away going, hey, I get nothing out of it, but I get satisfaction.
Sure.
And we should be satisfied the fact that we're in this country and we are lucky. We don't have bombs going off.
No.
We don't have to worry about, we're running off to air raid shelters or anything that happens in other countries around the world. We are a safe place. But for us to maintain the status quo of this country, we all need to be either setting goals and objectives and working collectively for the benefit of everyone, not just ourselves.
What a great way to end on such a fabulous interview, Paul. I want to take the opportunity of thanking you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and for the fabulous work you do to make our city such a great place. Sydney is the icon of this country, and by making Sydney great, you're certainly lifting the profile and sharing what a great country we live in, and great people like you we need more of. Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you, Garry. And can I say it's a team effort, right? It's Team Australia. If I can use, I think it was Tony Abbott that kept saying Team Australia. If we can use that collectively and without any attributes or whatever, but Team Australia is about all of us about working together, and that's how we're going to achieve a goal. And if we can all play that role, then Australia will be a great place.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star review and subscribe for more episodes. And if you'd like to learn more about developing your personal brand, please visit garrybrowne.com.au to get in touch or grab a copy of Brand New, Brand You.